Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am recording this in lovely Escazú, Costa Rica, where there were just fireworks in my background, and I don't know why. Perhaps left over from New Year's, but it is January 19th in the year 2025, and it's Aquarius season. Yep. Aquarius season has started. The sun is in Aquarius as of this afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And welcome the water bearer. So we are now in the season of the revolutionary, the contrarian, the innovator, the brilliant, the genius, the independent, the indignant. Can't be all positive, right? And it is a time of, experiencing the desire for liberation and freedom. And perhaps you've gotten the itch, or you're going to get the itch to be more freedom oriented, more liberated, more experiencing that desire to, be independent or do what you want or not be held back by limitations. And remember that the limitations start with us. So what we think we're limited by, or where there are things inflicted upon us, we can choose to work with it to the degree where it is not so limited. Change our mind, change our brain, change our perspective of what limitation is and how maybe structure in our life does actually give us freedom. And so the big aspect this week is the sun conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. And that occurs on Tuesday morning in Eastern Time, 7:29 a.m. And this is important. Because this is the moment when the sun and Pluto are meeting once a year, which they do every year, but this is the first time it's in Aquarius, okay? Last year, it was in Aquarius. It was definitely in Aquarius, but it was, I think the exactitude of it was at 29 degrees of Capricorn. And I remember the moment a year ago when there was the sun in Capricorn meeting Pluto, and for the last time in Capricorn, and then going into Aquarius. And both planets went into Aquarius after that. The sun went into Aquarius, Pluto went into Aquarius. And it was phenomenal because it was as if they entered the sign at the same time, together, holding hands, being conjunct, but it was not quite Aquarius. It had been the exactitude in Capricorn, and then we step into Aquarius together. So they were conjunct, but that moment when they were exact, which is sort of what astrologers consider the actual aspect, that occurred at 29 degrees of Capricorn. So this is really the moment on Tuesday when the sun and Pluto meet in Aquarius exactly for the first time in our lifetime. And this is going to go on for the next 20 years. So this is a moment. This is a very powerful, empowering time when we have the life force meeting with the planet of transformation and resurrection and renaissance. Okay, so this is our life force, the very force that drives us forward in our lives. And so this is a powerful thing, and it is in this new place. So this is the big news of the week. It is the alignment of these two planets. And every year the sun goes into Aquarius. This is not a new thing. We know every sign has a day when it starts, every sign. So we expect Aquarius at the 19th or so of January. And this was the first time that we're experiencing it with Pluto in Aquarius. And Pluto was there first. So Pluto's been in Aquarius since November 19th. As you know, as I have said ad infinitum, anyone who has listened to me long enough has been hearing me talk about this for a long time. And really the sun and Pluto here now. Really, this is it. The light is shining on the new paradigm. And so this is going to be really interesting. And it's always a profound moment when the sun and Pluto conjunct every year because, like I said, it's that life force, it's that vitality, and it's getting a big boost of energy from the planet Pluto, which is a highly energetic planet. It's not like Uranus, which rules Aquarius. It's not like Uranus, where it's shaking things up and you feel over caffeinated or electrified. This is deep, meaningful, somewhat subtle, but intense. Okay, so we're looking at the intensity of Sun Pluto. It happens every year. Sun and Pluto meet in one sign or another, but this is a moment when we can really maybe tune into this great big transit of Pluto and Aquarius. And if you meditate, which I hope you do and suggest that you do if you don't, this is a moment when you can sort of sit with this energy in these next days, and especially on Tuesday, and experience that depth of the Sun and Pluto. It's that moment when something may change, when something may transform. It may be something that you want to feel transforming in your life. It may be something that is transforming and has been changing for a little while now because the sun is triggering wherever Pluto is in your chart. The sun is triggering that, and the sun can be a trigger. So it's bringing forth this whole new paradigm. Now, it is enlightening us and shining a light in the closet, which, planets like the sun do, because Pluto is a very deep, intense, and underworld planet. So maybe some aspects of your own personal underworld, your personal closet, may be revealed or come out and are very powerfully recognized during this time. So this is why I'm suggesting, if you meditate, this is a great energy to focus on and to be present for, be present with. And as we approach the sun, Pluto conjunction in these days up till Tuesday, because it's only Sunday, we are going to feel that energy intensify and then crest, come up to a crest and then, fall. If you are a Sun Pluto person, or if you've ever had the sun progress to Pluto in your chart, if you know your chart, then this is something where you will be having a recurrence. And whatever is, present in your life, if you're a Sun Pluto person, then, and I don't mean just to being a Scorpio, like, oh yeah, I'm ruled by Pluto, but I mean the sun is conjunct Pluto in your chart. And if that's the case, then you're going to feel this especially strongly. If you had a progression, especially as a functioning adult, if you had a progression of the sun progressed to Pluto, you are going to know that this is a trigger of memories from that time. And every time the sun and Pluto conjunct in the sky every year, you are going to have the memory of whatever happened. So say you might have been 15 years old, 10 years old, 35 years old when the sun went to Pluto by progression in your chart. Something profound happened that year. Maybe there were some big changes. Maybe it was very exciting. Maybe it was very profound. But remembering that may come up in these next days. So just be aware of that. Just be aware of that. And speaking of conjunctions, we have just been through the Venus Saturn conjunction. And Venus and Saturn were exact yesterday at 8:26 p.m. Eastern Time. And this is something that happens also once a year. But we're going to talk about this now. Again, I spoke of it last week. And I talked about Venus approaching Saturn because it was technically part of last week's podcast because it was yesterday. And I want you to be aware of the profundity of what we're going to see with this aspect. So I talked about it last week, and Venus is the planet of love and the principle of, love and sharing and your heart opening, and Saturn is not that. Saturn is where it's structure and duty and responsibility, and also where you might have felt your heart doesn't want to be open. And as I have said before, and many times on this podcast, when Saturn and Venus get together, there is a quality to them that makes us, one, confront our fear of loving something, someone, etc., deeply. And this is Pisces. They're in Pisces, which is where Venus is exalted. And so there is confronting the fear of being, immersed in love. And sometimes that's not entirely comfortable, especially when we're confronting the fear. And then there's also that Venus and Saturn, which I mentioned on Instagram yesterday when I was talking about this aspect. Venus and Saturn can make us believe in the myth that we are unlovable. Saturn is a karmic planet, and it can bring in situations left over from karmic situations, other lifetimes, which I believe in, of course, but the feeling of being unlovable may stem from a past life. Because when you walk into this life with a Venus-Saturn conjunction, you are walking in with some sort of karma in your relationships. And this is what we need to contend with. It's one of those things we always have to do that Saturn in our chart. We have to work through it and work through the fear that we may be unlovable and that no one will love us. And that's not the case. If you are a functioning human being in this world, chances are you're quite lovable, and you may just feel some sort of hole relative to that in your life. I have a friend here who is a Venus-Saturn conjunction, and so this is a recurrence. This is a recurrence for anyone who has a Venus-Saturn conjunction, and for my friend, it was a Venus-Saturn conjunction, and a couple days ago, her dog passed away. And she was very upset, obviously, because who do you love more than your dog? Your dog, your cat, your baby. That was her baby. It was a little Yorkshire Terrier. And she had her, she was 16 years old. So she was an old dog. And she was blaming herself because of situations and stuff. And, this is what people do when they have Venus Saturn. It's my fault. I belong in the unlovable category. I didn't take care of my dog properly when she did everything in her power to take care of the dog. And it was the dog's time. And so, Venus Saturn, if you have it in your chart and you experience the recurrence, usually something happens. Now, that may or may not be as extreme as you lose a beloved animal. It could be that you have a fight with your husband or wife or whomever. You have a fight with someone you love, your kids. It's easy to have fights with kids, right? It's confronting the fear. Now, obviously, and I know my friend well enough to know that she adored her dog and adored her baby girl. And she just, it's that fear of, oh my God, I'll never love that deeply again. If I never loved, I never would have cried. And it's the sadness of loss many times. It's a grief aspect. It's the times we remember those we lost. And, that's a very complicated remembrance and feeling in our being. And I've known many Venus Saturn people. I know like a lot of them have the square, and, the people I've known, oppositions, conjunctions, and it sort of operates the same way in any hard aspect. But it can be something that really makes them feel like no one will ever really love me the way I need to be loved. And, I've fallen in love, but they often don't love me back. So it's a serious aspect. It's a serious aspect. And it is not finished. So this is the thing I want to talk about. It's not finished. When we get to April, because Venus will retrograde all of March and the first half of April, Venus is going to enter Aries in February and then get to a certain point and then retrograde in early March in Aries and go back into Pisces and travel backwards till it gets to the beginning of April and gets close to Saturn again. And so what's going to happen is Venus is going to approach Saturn backwards. So Venus will come back into Pisces, and by that time Saturn will be like another 8-9 degrees from where it is now. So it's like 15 degrees. It's going to be, much later, 23, 24, 25, 26 degrees of Pisces. And Venus is going to come back over that, and Saturn's moving forward and Venus is moving backwards, and then Venus is going to be slowing down and stepping back over Saturn. So as soon as it gets within a couple of degrees of Saturn from the backwards motion, we're going to be feeling it. And that's around the 2nd of April already, right? So we've got a while before this happens, but I want you to be aware of this, and I'll explain more in a minute. So as we go backwards, Venus will move over Saturn, conjunct Saturn, keep going backwards, then stop, and it's not going to stop far from Saturn. It's only going to be about 2 degrees. It's not going to be 10 degrees away. Keep going way back past Saturn. It's only going to stop a couple degrees away from Saturn, and it's going to hover, stop, and then move direct, which means the whole time it is moving past Saturn backwards, it's getting ready to turn direct, so it's stationing on Saturn, essentially, and then coming back over and conjuncting Saturn exactly again. This is all going to take weeks. This is weeks of Saturn-Venus. And so this is complicated for every one of us. And if you are a Saturn-Venus person, like my friend, and I'm helping her get prepared for this, this is something that you want to look at. Okay? Because when that Venus comes back direct, then it's going to move. It's still close to Saturn. Saturn steps over Saturn and then starts to separate. This is going to go on for a while. Most of April. And then Venus will move away from Saturn. We can all breathe a sigh of relief, wipe our sweaty brow, and say goodbye for another year to Venus-Saturn conjunction. Venus will do other things with Saturn, but this is a big deal. And what I want you to pay attention to is what's happened in the last couple of days, because this is profound, okay? Something may have gone on for you that may be the beginning of a story about the Venus-Saturn that's going to be in April. Now, obviously, my friend's dog died. Do I think the dog can't die again? Do I think that she might have recurring upset over this? Sure, but it might be something else. For me, it was a different feeling. For me, Venus-Saturn was the recognition that I needed to do some work around relationships and certain things that still I was confronting fear about. Okay? And that this could be your money too. It's not just your close personal relationships. It could be your money, because Venus and Saturn have to do with money as well. Like, do you fear money? Do you have issues with money? They're going to come up during this. So Venus and Saturn are going to reveal to us what we need to do some more work on. Now, for me, I saw very clearly a fear that had been, resonating to things in my past, etc., obviously, and I saw myself step through it step by step and watched myself react to it differently than I have in the past. And I was happy with myself. At first there was the fear, and then there was, okay, this is why the fear is just a fear. Because this picture, and there's the fireworks again, this picture of what you're seeing is not as you suspect it is. This is not what it was in the past. And so I want you to pay close attention. Did you have it yesterday? Did you have it on Friday? My friend's dog died on Thursday. And, today is Sunday, and it's still hanging in the air, this Venus-Saturn. And then it'll probably be outshined by Sun Pluto. But what I want you to pay attention to is how you felt. What did you feel? What did you feel in these last days? Did something trigger you to be afraid of something or bring up an old anxiety around money or relationships or people or stuff? What was it? Okay? And take note of this, because when we get to April, it would behoove each and every one of us to do some deep work around what that was revealed to us in these last days. So, for me, I understand I need to do some things around, the fear I recognized. Maybe my friend will need to not blame herself about her dog. Maybe she'll find a healing in that. And the idea, it isn't to run away from Venus Saturn, it's to heal it. So you want to embrace whatever the fear is, look it square in the face the fear, and get through it for once and for all. And gosh, Venus Saturn, everybody's got a fear of something in the Venus realm somewhere. Even if you're not a Venus Saturn person in your chart, I'm sure there's relationships, money, anything that was hanging over you and causing you to not step through the fear and step past it. And have faith. Have faith. Because remember, Venus isn't just going to be with Saturn. Venus is going to be with Neptune as well. So when we get to the beginning of February, Venus is going to conjunct Neptune in Pisces. So it'll have done a thing with Saturn as it did the other day. And then in a few weeks, go over Neptune. And then by the time we get to the end of March, when Venus is fully in retrograde, it will connect with Neptune again at the very end of the zodiac, which is all about atonement, surrender, and the grace of God. Grace of God, universe, goddess, Mother Nature. And by the time Venus finishes the dance with Saturn in most of April, by the time we get to the beginning of May, Venus will meet with Neptune for the last time, conjunct, in Aries. So we will be a fresh energy. And you have to look at this as a series of events and a story, because we will be in a fresh energy with Venus passing over that whole Saturn situation and then greeting Neptune one last time in early May after it's finished with Saturn and connecting in Aries at the beginning of Aries, where we are experiencing a new day and we can step forward as the individual, right? Amazing. So this is very symbolic. The goddess has a story for us. Tune in, continue to pay attention to this energy, watch what happened over these last days, write it down if you need to, and remind yourself as we get to April, because we've got some sort of story here. Okay, and also pay attention to, the beginning of February, when it's February 1st, actually, that Venus and Neptune will join each other. So that we'll talk more about that on next week's podcast. So one of the other exciting days this week is Thursday. Thursday, we've got some fun things happening, and Mars is going to be talking very nicely to Uranus at 10:08 a.m. There is a sextile between Mars in Cancer and Uranus in Taurus. So this is really good. It means that our energies and our innovative qualities will be aligned with one another and be harmonizing one another. And this is very powerful. This is very good. Even though Mars is retrograde, this will give us a little more energy. Okay. Then there's Mercury, which is going to oppose Mars. So Mercury's in Capricorn, as it is this time of year often, and it will be opposing Mars at 3:49 p.m. Eastern Time on the 23rd, Thursday. And that's good. That means that Mars is getting a jolt of energy from Uranus, a jolt of energy from Mercury. And if Mars and Mercury are talking and Mars and Uranus are talking, that means that Mercury and Uranus are talking. And an hour and 15 minutes later, 5:07 p.m., Mercury will trine Uranus. So this is good. This is good for communication, for creativity, for innovation, for sparking new ideas. So Thursday's a very creative, problem solving, whether it's creative artistically, creative problem solving, we're all creative energies flowing in your life and sparking ideas. Don't get overly analytical. Think about things as you need to, figure things out, but don't get too analytical as Mercury, Uranus can be. But they're an earth sign, so it's very grounding. It's very grounding. So I offer you this day, this Thursday, to maybe do some creative work, maybe to do some creative writing, to just sort of journal a bit and work with ideas that might be brewing for yourself for whatever projects you may have in your personal life or at work, right? So that's very good. And these are lively aspects. They're alive. They're asking for our participation. They all spark, flames and lightning and all sorts of good stuff. Now, this is good. This is not arguments, right? These are, for the most part, smooth aspects. Mercury opposite Mars, maybe there's a little bit of a crackle in the air, but I wouldn't buy into that too much because there's too much good going on here. There's too much positive energy flowing. And if you've been working on ideas and if you've been trying to come up with something that is new and refreshing, maybe in your job, maybe in your own business, maybe in your everyday life, problem solving solutions, stuff like that, this is a great day to consider all of that. So very good, very good. And then there's Saturday the 25th, where Mars and Venus are trining one another, and that's at 6:54 p.m. Eastern Time, and they are in water signs. So this is flowing, lovely, juicy, romantic, because they're in water signs. Venus is in her exalted sign of romantic Pisces, and she's talking to Mars, who's in this nice, soft, genteel Cancer energy, even though Mars does not do this. And Mars is out of bounds, right? So when Mars is out of bounds, and this is a declination situation, this means that Mars is going to maybe push the envelope a little bit, push the limits that it normally handles, and maybe push things a little further than it normally does. So it's good. You can push things a little bit with Mars, even if it's retrograde. This gives us some lively, romantic, juicy times. So if you have something romantic planned for next weekend, Saturday the 25th, that's a good thing. And I would recommend, if you don't, and you are in a one-to-one personal relationship, it's a good time for that. Maybe you want to surprise your partner with something. But it is also good for being creative and for having fun, visiting people, being social, getting together with friends, doing some outings, having a good time. This is a nice, smooth, non-aggressive aspect. So we like this. This could be a fun time with friends. Friday's my birthday. I'm going out with my friends for dinner on Friday night. So, yep, that'll be just in time. Even though it's Saturday evening, there's still going to be an aspect. So that's going to do me very well in my solar return. I actually have a grand water trine in my solar return. So that's going to be a very interesting thing to play out this year. And yeah, that's going to be fun. So I expect that to bless my evening celebrations with good times. Mercury's getting ready to leave Capricorn. This is the last week Mercury will be in Capricorn. Next Monday, the 27th, it goes into Aquarius. So this is good for very practical work this week. Practical results. Capricorn is results oriented. So if you need to do work that involves thinking into a very results-oriented solution, that's the work you do this week. Save next week for the innovative, active qualities of Mercury, when you're a little more analytical and maybe a little mathematical, or, just brightening up your ideas. Okay, that's next week. And so, in the meantime, if you are thinking about having an astrology session, you should contact me, thegoldenastrologer.com, and click book online, and you will be able to book a session with me. My explanation of 2025 called The Liminal Labyrinth is still available and shall be for a long time. You can buy that lecture, that masterclass, for $55 on my website. Also go to book online on my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, and you can pick up a copy of that to watch the video and have it forever and use it to guide yourself through this very interesting year that we are going to be having, with all sorts of planetary changes, including outer planet changes, which is a big deal considering how much energy is going to be back and forth between with the outer planets, Neptune and Uranus. And that's critical for this year. So if you want more information about that, then I suggest you pick up a copy of my Liminal Labyrinth masterclass. And if you want to book a Reiki session with me, which is beautiful, you can do that also on my website. You can follow me on Instagram, The Golden Astrologer, where I will be producing little videos and some nuggets of information around astrology as it happens throughout the week. So definitely check me out there. And I have expansion mentoring available for anyone who would like to spend 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months with me, changing their life, taking a hold of your life in the new year. It's still a very new year, so it's a great time to step into mentoring with me. And we do lots of different things, including clear old beliefs. I will pull from my toolbox to work with you and help you fall in love with your life. So I thank you for listening. Gratitude to each and every one of you. Have a beautiful week ahead, and I will see you next week. Thanks for listening.